HTC is back with one of the year's best phones. While the One M9 doesn't look to be all that different from its predecessor, there's something special about how thoughtful the company was when designing the upgrades in here. Shorter and narrower than the M8, and considerably easier to grip, the device is produced using a process called dual anodization, which produces two separate colors and textures from a single piece of aluminum. The etches make the phone less slippery, and the model we tested, a combination of silver and rose gold, was tasteful and elegant. HTC addressed several major user complaints in the M9 too. The textured power button has been relocated to the right side from the top, though it sits underneath the now delineated volume buttons, which can cause problems in daily use. But the biggest story here is the upgraded camera, which jumps from a 4-megapixel UltraPixel sensor to something a bit more mainstream. A 20-megapixel Sony sensor, likely the same one found in the Xperia Z3. HTC promises the best shooting experience on Android here, with fast autofocus and excellent low-light photography. But it didn't give up on UltraPixel altogether. That sensor has been moved to the front for better selfies in low light, and we tested that. It looks really great. We did have a few issues with the camera though. Lights were washed out and colors were soft and muddy at times, indoor shots especially. We also found autofocus to be less reliable than on the M8. All of these issues, HTC assures us, can be chalked up to pre-production software, but we're wary of that claim since the M9 is set to be released in late March. There's also 4K video on deck, though a lack of optical image stabilization makes walking with the device a bit too bumpy. The same camera controls we loved from the M8 are back, and there's something intuitive about the way HTC rolls everything together, though I'd like to see quicker access to favorite settings like HDR. They tend to be a bit buried here. We did find that in good lighting, autofocus was excellent, and with a 20-megapixel sensor, all that extra detail can be used with HTC's excellent manual controls, something most Android smartphones lack. A major improvement in the camera department carries over to Sense 7 as a whole too, a brand new theme engine. One can take a photo and use a crop for the wallpaper, but HTC goes one step further to create an entirely new theme from the details of that photo. For example, a brown wall produces a similar set of UI colors and textures, along with a new set of colors, fonts, and sounds. It's a really great way to personalize your phone, and something I'm surprised it's taken a vendor this long to produce. The theme engine also extends to user-submitted themes, so eventually HTC is going to open this up to anybody using a web-based tool to upload themes that can actually be downloaded from the Play Store. Here we see a bunch of themes that HTC has created for the purpose of launching the themes engine. Blink Feed has also received a refresh, with Yelp integration and a number of new content sources. That Yelp integration is part of a larger push for contextual assistance, something HTC says makes the home screen less static and boring. The phone knows where you are, obviously, because it has a Wi-Fi and cell signal and a GPS, and like a bunch of third-party lock screens like Cover, suggests restaurants, apps, and services that you may want to use at any given time. But there's also a pesky suggested apps folder for ones you don't have on your phone, and that's where the potential for abuse sets in. HTC promises that the apps are organically sourced and are not sponsored, but one HTC rep pointed out that this could change in the future. They are trying to make money after all. Sense 7 is not a huge diversion from 6, but it's been cleaned up, modernized, and material redesigned. First-party apps like the calendar are now light and blue and colorful, and despite not sticking entirely to Google's lollipop design, I'd argue HTC has done a better job finding a balance between its own native design language and Google's than any other OEM to date. It's really a nice way to interact with Android, and something that has been a long time coming. Aside from the silver and gold variant, HTC previewed a two-tone gunmetal black M9 too, which is slightly softer in the hand due to a different manufacturing process, and I think it'll appeal to a completely different demographic. It's really nice. On the specs side, HTC has implemented a 2800 mAh battery, an octa-core Snapdragon 810 chip, 3 gigs of RAM, and 32 gigs of storage, along with Cat6 LTE and a bunch of other optimizations. And from our testing, performance was blazing fast. It was really nice to use an Android phone that just did not slow down under any circumstance. Finally, we don't know timing and availability of the One M9 just yet, but HTC promises more news in the coming weeks. Look for it around the end of March or beginning of April, right around the time Samsung releases its new devices.